What began as a supposed celebration following the Sussex's latest round of high-profile charitable endeavors rapidly devolved into a shockingly combustible airport meltdown for all attending witnesses to behold, culminating in Meghan Markle and Prince Harry ultimately storming off the premises entirely in separate vehicular entourages. The heated marital dispute unfolded Saturday evening as the Duke and Duchess prepared boarding their commercial flight back to Montecito following a 4-day humanitarian mission visiting Colombian refugee settlements near the Venezuelan border. According to multiple eyewitness accounts circumventing immediate isolation from the pair's affronted representatives, Meghan initiated the latest domestic furor after becoming incensed over various logistical arrangements she deemed insufficiently deferential towards their attendance and security protocols. Despite the former royals traveling aboard the aircraft's first-class cabin accommodations accompanied by a substantial protective detail, the Duchess remained vocally asserting various staffing requests and accessibility demands be implemented in order for their departing flight experience to conform precisely to her preferences. This was before we'd even bloody checked our luggage or stepped anywhere near the departure gates, mind you, recounted one viscerally bewildered airline contractor working Bogotá's El Dorado International Airport that evening. But the former actress started berating my poor team from the absolute second her fleet of SUVs arrived curbside, imperiously insisting we reorganize the entire receiving protocol to essentially render the terminal their own personal red carpet whenever they travel commercially now as semi-royals. Eyewitnesses recount Meghan appeared unsatisfied even as individual staffers scrambled accommodating her party's requests by rerouting traffic patterns and clearing additional holding corridors throughout the ticketing lobby. The Duchess progressed into the main departures lounge, rapidly transitioning from stern directives into outright fury over perceived shortcomings in their treatment, culminating in a heated confrontation with British Airways' local station supervisor after being instructed standard regulations prohibited her personal security team from accompanying their principal within TSA's secure perimeters. You don't seem to understand just how potentially catastrophic the reality is we're living under as members of the leading human rights advocacy voice resonating across today's world stage. Our very lives remain at constant threat from rogue elements comprising the oligarch class's enforcers. Meghan rhetorically railed at the facility's station chief while television cameras capturing the Sussex's arrival ironically rolled throughout the uncomfortable exchange. Therefore, what's truly at stake being your callous indifference to guaranteeing our comprehensive safety protocols prioritized ahead of your measly travel industry chicanery, she continued alleging accusations of a vast conspiracy against their safety before Harry gently attempted guiding her away to de-escalate. However, instead of acquiescing, the irate Duchess repeatedly escalated while jabbing her finger in the airline employee's chest before rebuking her husband's peacemaking entreaties, bluntly accusing him of being complicit in jeopardizing their family's security through emasculated passive acceptance of traveling policies. "Oh no, you don't get to glibly whinge as usual after placing myself and our children in harm's way again with your blithe acquiescence to a system rigged against our human rights, Harry," Meghan turned furiously, shouting towards a visibly embarrassed Duke trying calming her tantrum. "I've warned repeatedly how my status as a biracial woman birthing the firm's first offspring of color naturally angers depraved factions among the generational aristocracy still longing, bringing me to heel." At this point, footage clearly depicts the Duchess slapping her husband's outstretched hands away while unleashing a torrent of verbal aggression, overtly accusing the Windsors and their intelligence apparatus of conspiring with airport security regimes to capture her for nefarious ends. Responding agents from the couple's private security detail attempted rushing to encircle Meghan, only for the enraged former actress to tearfully swat them away as bystanders finally alerted airport police responding to the escalating disturbance. No, let your sick protectors be complacent in however Rogue Force 99 were planning apprehending my descent after making sufficient spectacle for the Crown's glorified goons masquerading as customs officials to pounce. Meghan is overheard screeching defiantly as she paces about the terminal with unwitting passengers scrambling clearing her path. "Nothing will ever stop me from exposing the sickening tentacles of inherited institutional racism or the imperialist hatred coursing through Britain's noble blood against a black woman courageously appending their generational savagery and systemic oppression, not any false flag airport shutdown or privatized security trafficking abduction against my voice for the world's marginalized." Ultimately, airport supervisors felt compelled summoning armed units alongside Bogotá's anti-terrorism Fuerza de Tarea Conjunta Alpha teams who arrived on scene to de-escalate the surreal episode and safely clear civilians from Meghan's increasingly paranoid diatribes. The footage depicts the Duchess briefly attempting fleeing security by dashing through nearby airport lounges before Prince Harry was able to convince her standing down and permitting medics evaluating her visible distress. According to airport officials, EMT teams treated Meghan for a panic attack after she exhibited signs of hyperventilating and possible dehydration despite resisting their initial evaluations. Meanwhile, a clearly ashamed Harry ultimately acceded transporting his wife under professional care in a separate vehicle entourage summoned for their party while he prepared catching their scheduled commercial flight back alone. "We'd always carried contingencies planning for potential separation between the principals during outbound missions like this one, for reasons unfortunately now self-evident," one exasperated executive protection agent traveling with the Sussex's security team admitted to reporters after the incident. "But it's beyond distressing for her noble husband to be subjected repeatedly being the only voice of reason reigning in her mental delusions against assailants existing only in her mind, each relapse further damaging the Duchess while alienating those wishing preventing her inflicting greater self-harm." From the outset, the couple's intended 4-day tour through rural Colombian displacement encampments housing Venezuelan refugees alongside prominent local NGOs had been billed as a unifying humanitarian outreach by the Archwell Foundation. Throughout their coordinated stops distributing much-needed foreign aid provisions, Meghan visibly basked in rousing solidarity amid welcoming throngs and admiring crowds congregating their outreach while Harry also delivered powerful speeches condemning regional political violence driving the mass exodus. However, sources close to their retinue suggest behind the scenes the Duke and Duchess continued harboring unresolved tensions over Harry's perceived reticence fully validating his wife's self-anointed role as a figurehead for oppressed peoples worldwide. The scion's apparent unwillingness aligning unconditionally behind Meghan's most grandiose assertions allegedly prompted multiple heated arguments throughout the Colombian tour, culminating in their public eruption after he refused seeking forceful intervention overriding airport security protocols. Look, Harry's still head over heels in love with Meghan and sees her overcompensating rhetoric as ultimately well-intentioned. But despite sharing her broader humanitarian messaging, there's a hesitancy on his part enabling her wildest persecution complex delusions against the kingdom or hypothetical oppressors in every arena, the insider divulged. "I still don't think he fully grasps just how deeply estranged she's become from reality itself, trapped in some fantasized resistance mythology pitting her as society's lone voice against systemic injustice while dismissing everyone else's good faith intent to actually improve people's lives beyond grandstanding." Despite both parties apparently reaching their intended destination back home separately late Saturday, their latest explosive public row once again commanded the internet's insatiable attention throughout the weekend. Commentators across the political spectrum dissected Meghan's concerning outburst for manifold psychological undertones, reflecting everything from narcissistic personality disorder and delusional persecutory ideations to postpartum depression relapse or bipolar mania symptomology. Perhaps most damagingly to her credibility, the televised footage triggered outright rebellion among South America's indigenous advocacy networks, with organizers swiftly disavowing any affiliation or endorsement from the Duchess after witnessing her denouncing their entire airport infrastructure as an imperialist conspiracy to apprehend her. Multiple statements from women's solidarity and refugee resettlement groups decried Meghan's behavior as appropriating their legitimized struggles to cynically inflate her ego while threatening their aid missions via celebrity toxicity. How dare this spoiled oligarch banshee try claiming the actual liberation movements of oppressed indigenous peasants across our Abaya Yala nation justifies.